All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Jackie with Vine Skills. I've been with Vine Skills a little over 2 years now, and previous paralegal in a law firm. And before that, worked in records at a hospital on the releasing side, which is what led me into personal injury. So I do have a user background in Filevine as well as being able to build in it. So depending on what your need is in there, I can, or frustration or question, I can relate to you because I have been on the user side. I've had to manage a caseload in Filevine. So on today's topics, we're going to go over best practices for the feed, task management, and calendaring. Does anybody have any questions first off on any of those topics that we can lead from, or I could just dive in? Let me get the Q&A up.
I don't see any as of now, so
Perfect. All right.
if you all do have questions, again, feel free to use the Q&A.
And Jasmine will let me know if don't see them and I'm talking. So let's see here. So as far as feed and task management, the first thing I like to go over is the feed. When you log into Filevine, the first thing you see is feed. This is what your page lands on. And I often see people maybe ignore it or not realize what it can be used for. If it's ignored, it's usually because the notifications or the case assignments to what you're subscribed to or staff subscribed to is not set up right. So it's causing so much to come in on your feed. So if that's an issue, you definitely want to talk to your firm about when you should be subscribed to a case. So the goal is to only be subscribed or following a case when you are working the case. And then sometimes not even then, because if you're like the accountant and you're not coming into the end and you work off of a unique task that comes to you at that time, you don't have to follow the case. You're going to know when that task comes to you at settlement. So that keeps your feed clean and you're not seeing all of the stuff going on before settlement that the paralegal's handling, the attorney, everything. So if you have these permissions set up correctly, what you use this feed as is imagine walking away from your desk. You were gone for 2 hours and you came back, and how many stickies did I get on my desk? And I'm sorry, my screen must not have shared. Thank you, Jasmine.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I'm so sorry. So how many stickies did I get on my desk? So right now I have 152 stickies. So I more than likely have been out a few days or just wasn't checking my feed. Typically you'll just have, a few. You could have like 30 or something. So with that, you want to, what stickies do I need? If you do not need the item that's in your feed, you would archive it. So that one right there that Jasmine's going to archive in the top right corner where it says got it, that was just a notification of telling me, hey, it's 8 days until XYZ is due. I may already know that and have it on my calendar. I may not. If it was something I needed to keep and I want to follow up on, what I would do is, if you go to the next one, Jasmine, I can click that task or that notification and then hit the menu and I can assign it to myself instead of archive it. So it opens it up as a task within the project, but I'm just getting it off of my feed because I'm not going to work on it from here.
And
All
these are also listed down here.
right.
It's the same, just preference, I guess, of where you want to
Oh,
access.
yes. I always use gotcha. So you want to see what stickies am I going to put on my monitor and which ones are going in the trash can. And then also, like, say you get you came back and you got a new case assigned to you, and maybe you want to like knock out the few voicemails you have before you call that new case, but Lord, I don't want to forget to call the new case before the day's over. So rather than writing yourself a note or trying to remember, you would just take that notification and pin it to the feed, which is how that top item is there. And that is just your personal feed. This feed does not mirror anybody else's. Nobody has access to this. This is your personal feed. It is just like when you log into LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all of those, it's your personal feed and what you have subscribed to. And then that's just going to keep it in your radar to, hey, don't forget to call this one. All right. And then you can always unpin it. and then you can archive it.
And
So this
again,
is a
feed, and then to unpin it, you can either go to the three dots and unpin, or you can just click this banner here and it'll unpin it.
Mhm. Now, the most important thing with this to note, which is why I see some people um, maybe not archive anything on their feed, is they're afraid that's archiving it, and where do I find it again? So everything you archive here, unless it's just a reminder that's coming out based off of a deadline field, it is in the project. So this note right here that says DUI case confirmed, see intake details, AR pending. When I archive it from my feed, it is not changing anything in the project. It can also be pinned in the project to the project feed. So there's two feeds. The activity feed within a project is separate than your personal user feed. So you could have this note pinned in the project, but not in your feed. And then like here, since this is pinned in your feed, it's actually letting you know like, hey, by the way, this is pinned in the feed, your personal feed, but nobody else can see that. So this is another way of, if you're trying to keep things in your radar, it's better to use your feed rather than clog the top of the project up with pinning things that you want, because you want to use the top of the activity feed items that are pinned, or for like, you want everybody to have this in their radar every time they land in here. Do not speak to husband, or do not call after 5 p.m. or whatever the scenario may be. Like, we need to be in this mindset when we land in here, remember that this is a special circumstance in this project. Do not let client, go to client to treatment until we confirm coverage, because this is a rare scenario or whatever. So that is the type of note you want to keep pinned at the top of the project versus your personal feed. Okay, so of course we have 151 items here. There are ways for admin or Filevine to help you reset your feed if it is out of control, if maybe you never had it explained to you, or maybe you went on vacation for a week and you came back. I do not suggest working from your feed. It works just like social media. You'll get lost in it 30 minutes later and you're like, wait, what have I done? I'm still scrolling my feed. So I suggest talking to your admin and finding out how to reset the feed, but it's not something you would use as a daily tool. And then from there, you have a clean slate and you can stay on top of your notifications as they come in. And then if you need to clean up your permissions on how you're subscribed, I would do that also, and then reset. So you're not having to constantly clear out things if it's like you're getting 50 things every 5 minutes. Okay, so the next thing would be your tasks. So next to the little lightning bolt at the top, you have your tasks.
And sorry, can also be found in your feed.
Mhm.
These might not always be like, maybe these are mentions as well, not necessarily things you have to do, but maybe it was tasked to somebody else and you were mentioned. So these are also located in your feed, but if you're looking for just things that you have to do as a user.
Actually, go back to feed real quick, because that reminds me, Jasmine, a nice, if you are someone that has like, this is me, I may have 200 cases and I may really get this many things in my feed per day. If you can use the filtering. So before I fly through and archive everything, go ahead and show me my text. Go ahead and show me my faxes. And I'll get those cleaned up. And then maybe at the end, I just know the rest are emails and I can archive them. So, or let's say you got back from lunch and you were waiting on a fax and you don't want to go through the feed, you can filter to say, show me all my faxes or on my tasks. It's not best practice, in my opinion, to work from the feed though. So if you do filter and use those items, I would go directly into the project once you find the item on your feed. So I would go into there so you can see everything going on with the case. There may be other items you need to do, or, other tasks, or a new note that plays into what you're about to do and apply. So, and once you do that, item in the actual project, it will be removed from your task list, but not from your feed until you do that archive button.
And these are hyperlinks. So you can see the little text that pops up says go to project. So you can always click on this to go to the project where this is located.
And if you want to keep your spot on your feed, I do suggest using the shortcuts to open a new window. So maybe you have a few tasks popping up, you can do right click and then say open up a new window so you don't lose where you are in your feed. But then you would want to eventually refresh your feed if you've done a lot of work in projects because you want to clean up what's coming through. So maybe you want to look inside the project and compare to what's in that feed item. That's what I would do. Okay, perfect. Next, if you get a task, tasks are the same way. This task feed is specific to just you, not any other user. This is going to be the tasks that are assigned to you, and a task can only be assigned to one user at a time. There could be someone following the task because they're either subscribed to the project or mentioned in the task or the note or the thread, but this is specifically task assigned to you. If you see that a task is not yours, that should be with somebody else's, you can easily reassign it. But I typically say if that's happening, you need to let know whoever is setting up your cases. For some reason, I'm getting the task on this case and I'm not the paralegal because it's going to continue to happen throughout the case if you don't fix, where it is now or where the error is now. And then again, I say work from going into the case and seeing what tasks are incomplete. So if I go into this case right here, let's go into there and I'm going to automatically, that's not a good one. Let's go to demo client maybe. Is there any for demo client? Or Black Widow might be a good one. So as soon as I go into the case, I'm going to filter to incomplete tasks.
If you click on the task from this window, it's automatically going to filter based off of your search. So that's the only thing that's going to show in your activity feed. Let's see, this one might be not a good
I think
one.
actually that must not be the right Black Widow case. That must be a newer one. There we go. Use that one. Okay. So I'm going to go straight into the case. And instead of getting lost in the feed once again, I'm going to go up top and I'm going to filter to incomplete. And let's say the task that I was just looking at said send drop letter. Well, I'm going to do it, but let me see what else is going on. So scroll down. And it may be, let's just change what this scenario was. Let's just say it said client called regarding PD, please call them. But when I filtered to incomplete task, there may be a task from the day before where I asked the attorney to call the client. So before I call that client again, I see that the attorney hasn't called. I might need to ping them again or say, hey, by the way, this is one that called yesterday. Instead of me calling them back, do you want to go ahead and call them? So it gives you an idea if there's other things going on before you make that call. And then they're like, you're blindsided and they're like, the attorney hasn't called me. Or in this scenario, send drop letter. Okay, I'm going to send drop letter, but look at this. I also asked someone to pay this invoice and this invoice. If we're dropping the case, I need to go right underneath there. Hey guys, we're dropping the case. Please don't pay invoice, and then mark complete on the task. So it helps you just work as a team, or handle your task, because there may be two things you can get done while you're in here rather than waiting for that task to come up on your task list. Your task list will update as you're doing your task. And then if you're working from reporting, of course, you can always just run reporting on your incomplete task to see from a glance there. So you can prioritize your work to say, okay, here's all my new cases, or here's all my cases I need to send med request on, or I need to get the deck page on, or send letter of reps on, and you go and work on those cases, as a group, instead of when you pull your task list in Filevine, there's not a certain organization like reporting offers. So you would be going into one case and requesting records, and then your next one's a letter of rep, and then your next one's prepare the demand package. And if you prefer to work that way, that's fine, but I find it better use of time if we're working in bulk and doing consistent tasks. Does anybody have any questions on tasks and either of the feeds so far? And again, if they're depending on the type of law you practice or your position in the firm, if you have a better way that this works for you, that is great. These are just best practices that we tend to see across firms or that we have used ourselves. Let's see here. Okay. And then let's see, for the task management. So here, I'm going to take over sharing if you don't mind.
Okay.
Try that again. I think it was just on the wrong screen. Can everybody see my screen now? Can you, Jasmine? Okay. So as far as task management, one of the biggest things we see happen is you go into a case and there's like 12 incomplete tasks, and all of them are a staff member communicating internally with another staff member about the case. But did it really need to be a task? So there's a feature in the activity feed. You could do a task or a note. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and do at Jasmine Kim, let's see here, client stopped by and dropped off pictures, okay? Now, before I create this note, it says, we'll make this a task for Jasmine. Well, it may not need to be a task. Like Jasmine can decide if she wants that as a task for herself, if she wants to like review the pictures, or maybe I'm attaching the pictures and that's just me opening the task for her so she can review them or whatnot. So from there, just always make sure, does this need to be a task? If it does not need to be a task and you were just noting the file, but looping someone in that something happened, you want to then do the plus @ sign and then the user. And you see how it changed it over to, this is just going to be a note. And then let's say when Jasmine got this in her feed, if she decides to make this like, ooh, I need to make sure I review those, or ask them, where's the other 3 they told me about? She can assign it to herself so she can circle back to it. Okay. So I would go very light on what's a task. Also, if this client just called in about these pictures right here, or just dropped off these pictures, and then tomorrow the client called to be sure Jasmine got the pictures, you could still write a note here and task her, or note her, but you can also go here and just say, hey, Jasmine, by the way, client called to be sure got the pics. So it's in the same thread because it's the same topic. Okay. And let's say 6 months pass and this client comes back with more pictures. This probably isn't the best example to use, but I'm using it. And this was closed out because you've already looked at it. Because I saw this thread there, I can always open it back up, even though it's marked complete. So it has all the data in here, all the communication. It may have the attachment. I can always open it back up to Jasmine to say, client dropped off additional pictures. Okay. I don't need to do a new task every time if it's on the same topic. You can utilize that thread. Look at it like you would text messages. If you're talking to that one person, you would want it in the thread. You wouldn't want it to be where you have to go through your phone and be like, where's that one conversation I had that day with Jasmine on this? It needs to be in the same thread. If you have an abundance of tasks open in projects that are not or do not need to be open, but you're marking complete and you're still getting auto tasks that come out. But let's say like this one, the case is ending. We're closing this case. So let's just look down. Maybe there's some auto task. All right, here's some auto task. So I don't want to mark complete on this because draft demand, my firm may have something that pops out or comes out after a day after I complete this for the attorney to review the demand. Well, we don't need to review the demand on this because we dropped this case. So you can, I call it killing the task flows or closing the task flow by using the clear assignee feature. They've moved it to the top of the list. It used to be at the very bottom. So if you had a long staff list, you never saw it. But this right here will just convert this over to a note, and it'll still keep the stamp of when it was put on the case. It just closes out that task flow. Because if I were to mark complete, whatever comes next is still going to keep coming through. So when you get, a good example is when you go to archive a case and it's closed, filter to incomplete task and close out all those tasks. But you don't have to close them by doing complete. Because if it is even an archived, if it's an auto task that has another task tied to that one being completed, or it's a repeating one, it's still going to populate. You can also utilize a trash can project for duplicate tasks, or let's say I accidentally moved this case into a phase I didn't mean to, and it just created 5 tasks. So maybe I moved it to write the demand and I didn't mean to, or the demand phase. Let's see what's on here. Demand preparation, and maybe I meant to do treatment. So now I've got all these tasks in this case saying write a demand, but the client hasn't even treated yet. So instead of going through and marking those tasks complete, or noting underneath it, this doesn't apply, or diaring them out, you can just get them off of here. So you can put like generated an error. Well, let's go down to a different one here. That's already open. You would do like generated an error. And then you would go ahead and clear the assignee because you're not going to use this task flow yet. But now it's still on the file, so it's going to clog the activity feed. But at least we know it was generated an error, and that's why it's not like showing as an open task. But even better, we can just get it off of here. So we can hit move and move it to, if you have a trash can project, and it moves it off of the project over to the trash can. But you can still find it and move it back if ever needed. This works well with also like duplicate facts and junk text or spam text to get off of the project.
The other place where you can kind of go to discuss or talk about maybe the steps you're going to take before a task, or just talk about something within the case, is that sidebar up at the top. That does allow you to communicate with one another and then push items into a project if something does come of that conversation. So you can task and everything like that from within this sidebar portion. You can add in one or more members and then kind of chat back and forth with one another.
That's going to go to Jasmine, but it's not associated with a project yet. So we can talk back and forth about this. And then if I do want it in a case eventually, because that case did come in from Joe, we want to keep all that data we talked about, we can associate with the project when it's there. Or maybe if that's a referral source that you're used to and they have their own project, you can associate it with that.
And those are all listed there at the bottom. They're with the same icons that you kind of have at the top. So adding to a project, adding it as a task to a project, and it'll tell you like added from sidebar, things like that. So that's a note. And then right next to that is a task option. And you can set all of that information from there. And you can pick and choose which items you want included. So if we had a long thread of messages, you could select, 2 or all, or however many of the messages that you want included in that item. And then Jackie, there is a question. Where can they find the trashed items?
Okay. So depending on how your project's created, I recommend if you have some type of admin project in your Filevine, creating the project there so it doesn't count as one of your active cases or show up in your reporting. And so what I would do is I would go into trash. Excuse me. Where's our activity feed? This is a test project. All of the items are here. And the reason why I mentioned clearing the assignee before you move it is if you don't clear the assignee and you move that task over to the trash can project, it's still going to be assigned to you or the user, but just in the trash can project. So we want to get it off your task list. So if this was, something moved over, please still do clear it. Until you get used to using the trash project, you could do, let's just say I was archiving this. Oops. I was gonna, move this off. Like I'd say this was maybe it was the wrong project, or I'm gonna say duplicate. And then say what case it was on Joe Smith's case. Right? You can go ahead and add whatever you want to have added to that, move it over. And then when it's there, if you ever have to go back, or if there's an admin, some like manager in your company that's monitoring stuff, they know why it was moved over here. So where did that one go?
Yeah, you moved it to the trash.
Oh,
project.
hold on. I have to go over to the trash. Sorry. So here it's going to tell me this was a duplicate from so-and-so's project. Because when I'm moving it over between projects, it's not telling me this was moved from XYZ project like it does when you copy notes to other projects. That will tell you this note originated in, Jasmine Knighton's project and it was copied to this one because maybe we're companion cases. So when you're moving it completely to another case, it doesn't have that data. So if you wanted more information on why this was moved to the trash can, you could just have staff write a note underneath there while they're moving it. And just be sure that they clear signee. So it doesn't show as an open task that Jasmine needs to do for the trash can project. And then it's very important in your trash can project, whoever sets that up for you, if you have automatic assignments in your firm where people are subscribed, you can unsubscribe everybody. So they're not getting pinged every time someone moves something to trash can and marks it complete. So I usually go in and just unsubscribe everybody. Okay, is there any other? I see a few. Oh, that's you, Jasmine. Let me see.
No other questions so
Other
far.
questions? Okay. All right. Just see here. All right, and then as far as your task report or managing your task, working from a reporting aspect is much better than coming over to your task and seeing you have 157 and then just starting from the top, because this may not be one that's urgent, or you may have several to do on this one particular case. So I always recommend having a task report come to you. So you can build that in Report Builder. All users should have access to that. When you go into Report Builder, it's called List of Tasks. And from there, you would select your organization, which is basically which template you're using. So if your firm has, let's say, a workers' comp template and a criminal and a personal injury, which one are you going to run it across? So I want to run it across my personal injury one, all my tasks. And it already pulls the columns in for you. I typically take out the completed by name and date because I want to know what I haven't done. So it just makes the report cleaner. And then I go over to choose criteria. And from here, you are going to add your username. So wait, let's go back. Sorry, incomplete. First, I'm gonna do incomplete. Oh, completed. So first, we want to say the task is not complete. And then task assigned to username. And this is where you would do your username or contains. You could do it by like first name too, but let's just say Jasmine. Okay, and then I always include archived, especially if I need a cleanup, because we want to get those archived cases that have open task off of there. So my task reports up to date. So I'm going to include archived, and then I can run it. And this is going to pull all of my cases in this template, or all of my open tasks. Jasmine didn't have any. Let me see if I do. I can't think of who I usually use.
Mine's Jasmine 4.
Oh, that's why. Okay. I didn't realize that. There we go. So you do have to have the correct username. So yeah, she has 31, and then you can group it from there. So I want mine grouped by project. Okay. And then export it. And then from here, rather than looking at that task list on the Filevine screen, I can see here where I may need to delegate attention to right now because I have an influx of cases that I need to send initial medical records request out on. I have 2 intakes. Maybe I have 3 cases that need LORs, 3 that need requests sent for records, but 6 demands to write. So it's like, oh, I need to get on the demands before I do those. Or maybe I'm like, let me knock this little bit out before I do the demands. So it just gives you a bigger picture of where your work lies. And then from here, who it was assigned to, it gives you a link directly to the task or right into the project. It'll also tell you the last activity on there. So that can be helpful if it's something that's been sitting a while. The author name, when it says Filevine system, that just means it was an auto task. If it was a task written out by a particular user, like this Vine Skills team, that's where it'll say like Susie, wrote this note to Jasmine. So this is a nice way to stay on top of your tasks. Or let's say someone's out and you're their backup. So you could go in and run their task list to see what they have pending and where to help them, because we can't see that unless we log in for them. So this is a way another user can like help, or even administration, like, let me see, what we can help with so-and-so while they're out with the flu this week, and give it to someone to work from without giving them the login.
And the nice thing about these reports is you can save them and then have it continuously send to you. So if you're like, hey, at the beginning and end of the week, I want these tasks sent to me. That way I know what I need to work on at the beginning of the week. And then at the end of the week, I can make sure that I've covered everything I needed to before the weekend hits. You can also choose monthly or yearly. And then again, another nice thing is once you save the report, you do have the option to share it out. So you can say, hey, I created this great base report, send it to other folks and say, hey, the only thing that you need to change on the criteria is your username. And they're able to go in, just change that username, and then run the report without having to go through all of that manual setup that we just saw.
Right. And this is a very basic report, but again, if you haven't used a report builder, it may be like, wait, what did they do? So you would just go back to your saved reports, run it, like click the report, let it run through before you change anything. And it would land on this screen. But I want to go back to choose criteria, and I just want to change it to my username, and then I can save my own version. And those auto reports where they're coming out here, you can change this at any time. So right now you may want them weekly on Mondays and Fridays, but you may have it down and cleaned up so much you only want to start getting it once a week. You just go back here and update it and change it. And this is only something the user can do. So admin can't say, I need everybody to, or, admin can't build a report and automatically go out to everybody unless they were going to have it sent to them and they forwarded it. The user has to set the automatic reports up. The backup method to this task report, which seems to be really nice for, let's say, attorneys. So attorney may have 3 paralegals that they're fielding all these, managing cases with. So they may have more tasks. So if you go into setup on your user side, this is for your setup, you can go to notifications and go to daily and select, let's say in the morning, I want to know new incomplete tasks assigned to me. I find this is great for attorneys because they tend to have a lot of pending tasks. So I was in court yesterday afternoon, and when I came in today, before I start working on anything, what did my paralegals send to me yesterday afternoon that I need to address now? There may be some urgent things. So those gets those new tasks in front of them, and they can see if there's anything that like I need to be on, like, oh, there's a serious injury case that Jasmine needs me to call that we just got assigned, instead of them trying to run their full report and look through it. So that's a nice one to use. Same thing with the deadlines. I know we're not speaking on notifications, wasn't one of the topics, but while we're back here, I do suggest that if you have all of these items checked, to uncheck them. It's going to cause you to not follow any of your notifications. Use this as a backup method. So I would use these lightly. So if you feel like you want to know about your texts sooner than you find them in your feed, you can come back here and select that, or whatever the scenario may be back here. But all of these items right here, if you're subscribed to the project, they are in your feed already. So if you're marking to get them all by email also, you're getting them double. Or if you're doing it to your phone, same thing. If you're really savvy with Slack, like what we do, we have our workspace signed into Slack. So all of my Filevine notifications, because we do work from Filevine just like you do, they land into a channel for me. So I know when I have a task assigned to me and I need to do something or someone noted me. That may not be ideal though for someone that has like a 200 caseload, of course, but you can use it for certain things. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Last part is the calendaring. There is, of course, the option to add something manually onto the calendar, or there is a feature to use the deadline reminder fields. It's very important to note that date fields are not added to the calendar. So a date of intake, this is a standard date field. There's nothing around it. It's just where you enter a date. That does not go onto the calendar. If you need it to go onto the calendar, you would have to manually enter it. But when you come across fields like, oh, here, let's go to case summary. So like an SOL field, these are added to the calendar where you see the due and the done. It's not two fields built in separately. It's a field tied together. So if I enter 12/1 here, 12/1/23, it's going to go on the project calendar as the statute of limitations is due on this date. And depending on what your firm set up in the back end of that field, there's a reminder schedule. So for SOL reminders, they may have something going out to the staff subscribed to that case, 120, 90, 60, 30, 7, 10, 1 days till before the due date. So you're going to get those notifications unless it's been marked done. And it's marked done only when the statute's satisfied, which however your firm handles that. I mean, of course, typically it's suit's been filed or we dropped the case or we settled, and that's the date that goes there. So if I drop this case today, I need to cut that statute off because we have satisfied it on our end because we're closing it out. And then that cuts off that reminder schedule with those reminders going in your feed. So if you're not closing out those reminder deadline fields, that's another thing that can bog down your notifications on your feed. And then it'll also show that this was satisfied on the calendar with that done date. So it's very important to note that. And then if you want it to go onto your Outlook or Google Calendar, you can sync your calendar with Filevine. And when you utilize these fields or either manually enter something on the project calendar, it will sync over to that calendar. And where you go to set that up is in the top left corner, the menu, setup, and this is per user again, right here on the settings. You would set up sync it right here. Okay. And then you can also select from there who else you want to share your calendar with. I don't suggest sharing it with everybody in the firm, but typically there's maybe, attorney Derek needs to make sure, his two paralegals have access. So he's going to add them here so they can see the calendar. And then this works just like any other application. If you see you feel like there's glitches with your calendar or it's taken a little bit, like, hey, I put that on the calendar 15 minutes ago. Why is it not showing on my Outlook calendar? Don't throw your computer and hate Filevine and say that Filevine is awful. It's unfortunate that it's not on there and you had to look, but it's just like our phones and whatnot might need a reset. So it's a good indication to come up here and clear your browser. So go to history. I clear all of my history, excluding my passwords. And then also Sometimes it is, you just may need to like delete it, remove it from here and resync it. It takes just a moment. So I usually will clear my browser, make sure there's no updates needed. Most of the time when it happens to me up here, I have a notice that my Google browser needs is updated. So I'll go ahead and update that. And while I'm at it, I'll go over and say, look, see, I got 3 things in the App Store. Do these need updated? Which one might be my email? And then I check my computer updates, restart, resync it. It will not only more than likely fix your glitch you saw, it will give you more speed. It may fix any other little glitches you weren't catching. So I do this weekly, sometimes more, depending on how much what I'm noticing. So please do remember that if something doesn't seem to be working with the calendar, to troubleshoot all the applications, especially your Outlook or your Google. There could be an update due on that side that is not reading right with the Filevine integration.
And these calendars also show up in that global calendar at the
Yep.
top. And anybody who has shared their calendar with you will also show up there as well on that left-hand side. You do need to select deadlines from the very start. Once you do it, it should be sticky and show up all of your deadlines for all of the cases that you're subscribed to. And then you can always change the layout view of your calendar. It's set in month, but you can change it to any other format you'd like. And again, that should be sticky. Now, you do want to make sure that you have one source of truth. So if you're putting all of your deadlines in or all of your dates in, maybe put them in through your Outlook or Gmail, they'll sync over into Filevine or vice versa. Wherever you put that date in is where you need to edit it from. So you're not going to be able to create a event here in Filevine and then try to edit it in your actual calendar. So just a note there. If you're having issues like, why isn't this, working the way that it should, it might be where you first created that event.
Mm-hmm. And
And
that list view is very important that Jasmine mentioned, especially when you're in a case. So for one like this that has a lot of deadlines, or it's had a lot of events, I should say. If you needed to compile that history for some reason, if you change it over to list, this gives you the entire events from the date you open the case and to the future.
it's a
Rather
little
than
more
go month up. Yeah, and same thing for this. It is, and a lot of people I've been on, and they're like, "Gosh, the month, like I need to know about like what happened 3 months ago," and it's like, there's filters here. Like, be comfortable using the filter. It's not changing the view for any other user. It's only for you while you're in the project right now. Some people get worried about using those filters within projects because they're afraid that it's going to hide something that somebody else needs to see or whatnot. No, this is just for you on your Filevine. I need to see the list today in this project. It's going to do this, but it's not going to change it on Jasmine's view right now.
Jackie, it looks like we have a question. They have an SOL date, the due and done field, but they're not getting reminders automatically. Can you show them how to set up a reminder schedule and attach it to that field?
Sure can. So the way you would do that is, and I'll talk a little slower if you want to write it down or follow me through. But it's going to need to be someone that has advanced permissions. So you're going to go in the top left and go to advanced, customs editor, locate the template that's in. I'm going to go to the one we're working on right now, which is this personal injury template. And then you want to find the field. In our template, we have it in case summary. So I'm going to scroll down to that field or either do Command F. Usually it's at the top, so I didn't think I'd have to scroll that far. All right, so I'm going to find it and it should look like this. It's not a regular date field. It will be the name of the field, deadline with reminders. So when you select this field, when it was set up originally, that's where the reminder schedule needs to be tagged. Sometimes depending on how you launched, this was never set up and you get the aggressive Filevine schedule, which we don't have back here anymore. Oh no, we do, which is
180.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're going to get 180 notifications. You're probably going to get one 3 times a day. Don't like if you have that
Almost an
there,
entire view.
yeah, if you get that back here, if you have this, I recommend removing it, but having something in place, and I'll show you that. So this is the reminder schedule you have, whatever is set here. If there's nothing set, or if it's that aggressive one, we have to go set that up first. So I always encourage or suggest to set your reminder schedules up ahead of time. Or if you're about to go clean this up, now that I'm showing you this, come over here first, okay? If you have this as your default, get rid of it. So let's just add one and then just come up with like a basic one. So I want like 180, 120, 90, 60, 30, 10, 7, 1, whoops, 10, 7, 1 days before.
And the benefit of kind of spelling out the number of days is that you can create as many reminder schedules as you want. And so when you're going in to include them in to not only those deadline with reminder fields, but your deadline chains as well, you want to know exactly what days you're going to be notified. That way you can better determine which reminder schedule that you actually want to use. So just be cognizant of that as you are creating the titles of those names there. And you do have the flexibility, right? You didn't see 45 days or 15 days in there. You can always add those days in as well. So you do have flexibility in, again, what days you're being reminded about these items.
Yep. So on ours, where I was showing you at first with our SOL field, ours are older. It's before we learned the trick of doing out the days. I don't suggest calling it SOL reminder schedule or demand reminder schedule, because we can make them universal and use them on several fields. And then if you label it with a title like that, when you go to use it 3 months from now, or you're setting up a new reminder field, you're like, wait, what's the demand one? I might want to use that too, but you can't see what it is. So I like to do this. And then let's say we're going to make that our default. So put a star next to it. This is our default. Now, any field that was set up to have the org default reminder schedule removes that crazy Filevine reminder schedule, and everybody gets, every reminder field that's using it gets that. And then you can go through slowly and update. I mean, there may be, if you have a due date for when the demand is due and it's getting the Filevine reminder schedule, all it really needs is one day after due date. So once you have this back here as an option, you can go back. Actually, there was already one in here. I'm not going to waste our time setting that up, but you see what I mean. You want to go to that field where that demand due date is and make sure the reminder schedule tied to it is for the one day after due date. So now that I have that reminder schedule set up for that I want for that SOL, I'll go back to Customs Editor. I will find my field again.
It is statute.
No, it is, yeah. Okay, so here I can switch it over, and I'm going to use the one I built here. And now I know on the back end too, if I'm ever curious what it's getting, that's what it's getting. A little advanced tip for this, if your users are not confident in using those reminder fields because they're like, I don't know what it's doing when I put that date in there. You can build instruction text next to it. So there are for some reminder fields, maybe not all, but maybe the SOL, not only did I give instructions of how to work this field, because if you don't put this in here, you're going to have staff that when they put the SOL is this date, they also complete it for today because they thought that you were asking them to mark that you entered the SOL. So that instruction text goes a long way. But next to these fields, you can also say, entering the due, or you will get XYZ reminder schedule. You will get reminded, whatever you wrote out for it days before the due date. So everybody knows when they're getting reminded. And that's just an extra step you can do.
Perfect. Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? And while we wait to see if there are any more. Just want to point out a few things. I did put a few items in the chat. I put both mine and Jackie's email in there so that if you do have any questions or want to engage in any of Vine Skills services, you can go ahead and contact us. We do a wide range of services. We kind of run the gamut on all things Filevine and Filevine related projects, including lead docket, FVDA, automations, QuickBooks Connect. We also have finance skills. So if you're like, hey, we need help with our finances, we don't have an accountant, or we're looking to kind of bolster up in that area, we have a whole team of accountants that can kind of help and assist with that as well. We also do optimization. So if you all have been in Filevine for a little while and you're like, hey, there's ways that we're not utilizing this. I never even thought about a trash can project. We need help cleaning items up, or really anything along those lines, you can always reach out to us for optimization services so that we can help you throughout your Filevine journey. We do offer hourly services as well as optimization. So if you have larger items that need to get done, as opposed to those little kind of tick marks off, you can kind of pick and choose how you engage in our services. We are month to month, so there's no obligation to have a contract, for 4 or 5 months. You can kind of, again, pick and choose when you engage with us there. And all of that information is linked under our support plans. Again, I did put that in the chat. And then as far as free help, we do offer this every Wednesday, this same time. You can check out our website, which I linked in the chat as well, for any of our upcoming sessions. Our topics do rotate, so you'll want to make sure to check that out, so that you can see kind of what that next week's topic is going to be. And we do record these sessions. As you saw today, we recorded it. This will be up on our website by the end of the week for you or any of your staff members to be able to view. And you can also see past recorded sessions as well. So if you did have questions about those deadline chains or reminder schedules, we have done sessions on those as well. I didn't see any questions come in. Jackie, did you have any last minute kind of things that you wanted to chat about?
No, I went ahead and answered, Amber, your question on the SOL fields, just because that may have been a lot to take in. I wrote out what you should do. If you have any trouble with it, shoot me an email. I'll hop on Zoom with you. I know it can be, even if you saw what I did and it makes sense, kind of scary to change dates like that and reminder schedules. So I don't mind. I'll hop on a quick call with you and explain that further. But I did type out that for you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Hopefully we see you all again in the future, and have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.